Warning. This video contains scenes that other healers may find offensive. You have been warned. It's Resto Shaman Day! Three, two, one. Holla, my ballers! Oh, class guide has waited a week. The heat wave in the UK is awesome. I can barely wear clothes anymore. But today we're going to get back into it, and I've got another class guide coming through in just a couple of days. That's right, but today we are looking at some class and spec that's had a hard life. The poor old Resto Shaman, and he's finally come home to roost. Yes, I absolutely love this one. Resto Shaman's had such a hard time, a hard life. At the start of Cataclysm, they were next to useless. They were initially brought to any raid in any form of progression for their Manatide totem alone. It was not for their healing, which is really sad because they're such a great class with such utility. In fact, the initial Resto Shaman basic guide, which you can click here, boosh, was one of the best videos I think I ever recorded. I absolutely enjoyed that so much. So much utility, so much versatility, just so much going on for that class. Really enjoyed it. But at the start of Cataclysm, when it compared to the other healers' healing output, Resto Shaman were just not there to be found. They really weren't. It was really sad. In fact, I raided with a really good progression Resto Shaman, going for some World 13s that we managed to achieve, and he was so down. Oh ballers, he was a sad panda. And that's really upsetting because he was a good player. They had no big raid cooldown. Their healing output when it came to big AoE situations just was non-existent. Their big spells cost too much. Healing Rain, we couldn't use it. It was just too damn expensive. But now things have changed. Blizzard heard the cry of those Resto Shaman, and then suddenly what comes along? Bash! Spirit Link Totem, baby. And we're going to talk about Spirit Link Totem. We're going to talk about a little shift in reforging from our basic guide, and we're going to talk about some tips and styles of play which should hopefully help you guys out, because I really enjoy this class. I'm so happy it's coming to his own, to the point where many healers find this class to be incredibly overpowered, and we'll talk about all that good stuff. First of all, let's talk about this cooldown, this Spirit Link Totem. Spirit Link Totem is arguably the most powerful cooldown in the game. Don't Shamans seem to have all the luck? Oh, we need a really big boosty raid cooldown. Well, I think we should introduce Heroism and Bloodlust and give it only to Shaman. Boosh! Resto Shaman, Enhancement Shaman, flocking to the door. We were bringing 5 in the Sunwell. Absolutely, we had a Shaman in every single group for Heroism. It was so damn important. But then we started to spread Heroism, Bloodlust around. A couple of other classes got it as well. And Resto Shaman fell back into the way of, oh, I'm a sad panda. I'm such a sad little gremlin. Somebody feed me after midnight so I can turn into a boss again. And then Blizzard went ahead and gave us that big snack we'd been looking for in Spirit Link Totem. This totem is the most unique spell cooldown currently in the game. It's incredibly powerful. Stupidly powerful. In fact, a lot of guilds had people reroll Resto Shaman for Dragon Soul Heroic because Spirit Link Totem was so massively overpowered. What does it do? What is this Spirit Link Totem? Why is it so powerful, Preachy? Well, let's break it down. What does Spirit Link Totem do? First of all, it does its standard raid cooldown bit. It's going to reduce the damage of everybody in its radius, you know, by a nice little percentage. So we've got this nice damage reduction ability we can use on a timer, very similar to Power Word Barrier, Aura Mastery, Raid Wall, all that kind of thing. It's exactly the same, but then, oh my god, then it does something that is so unique and crazy that it's been used to exploit various fights. Cho'Gall Heroic, anybody? Spirit Link Totem then rebalances the health of the raid. Think about that for a moment. Spirit Link Totem says, what is the average percentage of the entire raid right now? Well, there's a few people nearly dead, but a lot of people are in good shape, so the average health of the raid is about 80%. It then goes ahead and rebalances the whole raid to 80% health. Insane. Those people who were just about to die suddenly got the biggest heals of their life. They just got brought straight back to 80% health. Everybody else lost a little bit of health, but overall your raid is now in very good standing. It is in fact very difficult to die when a Spirit Link Totem is down. Nigh on impossible. It's an incredibly powerful tool. All the time while that totem is down, it's constantly checking the health of the raid. It's also reducing the damage the guys are taking, and then it's rebalancing accordingly. It can work against you though, ballers. You need to be ready for this, especially if you're moving into heroics and some serious normal mode progression. His Spurling Totem may actually kill your tanks. This is something that has happened on a few occasions I've seen when Spurling Totem has gone down. The raid's not looking too healthy, so we really have to start thinking in our minds, is this a good Spirit Link situation? In general, the answer is always going to be yes. If your raid's in trouble or that big hit is about to come, let's look at Elementium Bolt, something from Madness of Deathwing, our blistering tentacles where the raid is starting to take obscene amounts of damage. Few people are dropping to the point where we can't heal them quick enough. Bang, Spirit Link Totem's going to bring them back into the game and keep them alive for the extra few seconds. Probably buy another healer a chance to get that big AoE healing off, whether it's a Tranquility or a Prayer of Healing. Our Spirit Link Totem is all good, baby. Absolutely fantastic. It's going to come out and sort that. But then we've got our tanks, and we do need to think about our tanks while we're dropping that Spirit Link Totem. Because if our raid is really low, we're going to bring down the health of the tanks. Because what oftentimes happens in a raid, guys, is that we have our raid is generally quite low, but our tanks are still on quite high health because they're usually tanking some big hard-hitting mobs. A perfect example of this is the Madness of Deathwing just at the end. Our raid starts taking heavy amounts of damage, there's shrapnel damage going on all over the place, and our tanks are tanking the two big monstrosities that come down, and they're stacking that tetanus debuff. That's going to start ticking for about 90,000 damage. Big damage on your tanks. So you're thinking, shit, things are going really badly, I'm going to drop a Spirit Link Totem because the raid is low health. The raid's average health is about 30%. What will happen is your tank's health's going to drop down to that 30%. That next tick of tetanus is absolutely going to screw your tanks over, and that's going to get them killed. So this is what I need you to start thinking about, guys, and when is our Spirit Link Totem going to work for us? When is it going to be absolutely awesome? And in general, it's going to be when there's no huge damage going down on the tanks, but there is huge damage going on in the raid. When we're going to get that Elementium Bolt, we start thinking just before it. Our Resto Shaman are watching those timers. We see this big cooldown coming. We know the blistering tentacles are really starting to burn the raid to death. There's an inferno going on. Boom, Spirit Link Totem gets dropped right at that time. 20% reduced damage and a nice rebalancing of the rest of the health, saving those people who tend to take a little bit extra damage than the others, the classes that are less resilient than we might expect from everybody all over the raid. Because remember, some people take more damage naturally than others. That is just the way of the game. And Spirit Link Totem is going to rebalance everybody out, allow you to get another healing rain down, another few chain heals, and also back up the other healers. So Spirit Link Totem, guys, envious eyes are looking at you from the other healers. Really envious eyes. So abuse it. If they're going to be envious, baby, then we're going to throw it right in your face. Oh, what's up, Spirit Link Totem? It's right in your mush. Really exciting stuff. The next thing we're going to talk about in our Resto Shaman guide, again, there's not much change in terms of gemming. We're going for as much intellect as possible. But in the day when we first hit level 85 and we get into those early days of getting into our first heroics, we were looking for a lot of haste. We wanted to make sure our haste was nice and fast, so our healing waves, our greater healing waves, our healing surges, all that stuff was on nice, fast casts, so we could keep up using lower end heals, which is what we tried to do in the entry level heroics, is we were looking to use lower end heals nice and fast, keep our mana nice and high, because our spells cost a fortune. Damn you, Blizzard, our spells cost an absolute fortune. But now, when we're in a raid setting, that starts to switch up a bit. And all because of our mastery. Our mastery is so intense, guys, so good. Just have a read of what deep healing does. The lower the health of people in your raid, the better and better you become. That is awesome. That is incredible. The worse off the raid is, you're happy because you're starting to put out some kick-ass healing. Seriously kick-ass healing. Crazy amounts of heals. And why? Because our mastery is just buffing our healing when people are lower on health. Now, when it comes to Dragon Soul, which is what we're aiming for at the moment, even normal mode and especially heroic mode, the raid is very, very rarely full health. Very rarely on most encounters, especially the more difficult ones. Obviously the easier ones, the raid tends to have an easier time. But if we look at Spine of Deathwing, Madness of Deathwing, Ultraxion, all these kind of things, our raid is generally never full health. And then we begin to shine like that shining star. We are absolute ballers. Our Brofist is hitting everybody right smack in the face, his teeth flying everywhere, and you stand proud. Absolutely love it. So we're going for a heavy mastery build. Now you're asking yourself, Preacher, how much mastery should I get? Guys, listen to me. Literally, the haste that comes with your gear is all the haste you need. You don't reforge the haste at all anymore. We can go as little as 1.5k haste, which is very difficult to actually not get in current raiding gear. It's very difficult to not get. The lowest haste possible. Why? Because every heal we're going to be chucking out is going to be awesome. It's going to be super powerful, and that mastery is going to buff our healing more than any other thing. We're going to go a big, heavy focus on mastery. Really going for it. We're gemming for intellect as well. Our intellect is generally always better. But if it comes to those mixed gems, let's throw in a little bit of intellect mastery. And then let's reforge our crit over to that mastery, because we get a lot of crit nicely. Remember, our play style, as we discussed in the basic guide, is keep that Riptide on cooldown, and that's going to provide you with all the extra natural haste from talents that you need, okay? Keeping Riptide on cooldown basically eliminates any need for haste in a Resto Shaman. It scraps it completely. We don't need it. All we need then is our big mastery, and every time that raid's in trouble, you go, "Sup, bros? I got this!" And you start doing crazy amounts of healing. Absolutely insane. So remember, that's a slight switch from when we're early days, we're looking for a little bit of haste, and now we're moving into very heavy mastery builds. Really, really exciting stuff. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about in our Resto Shaman guide today, remember, these guides are more advanced tips. This is looking for play styles, that kind of thing. If you want to look at gemming and all that kind of stuff, there's a basic guide there for you. What we're looking at today is our use of Healing Rain, and when it's good to use it and when it's not good to use it. Healing Rain, no matter what your gear, is still really expensive. Sure, Dragon Soul full heroic Resto Shamans who don't really need to talk about class guides and that kind of stuff, those guys are going to be able to spam Healing Rain all the way through the fight without any sort of issue whatsoever. However, when they don't need to cast it, guess what? They're not going to cast it. But one of the big things we find in looking for raid is people dropping Healing Rain absolutely all the damn time, and it drives me round the bend. You literally see a tank's the only person taking damage, they're dropping Healing Rain. And I've seen healers go so damn fast in looking for raid doing this. Don't do it, guys. When is a good time to get a Healing Rain? Make the most effect of it, guys. Get practicing. It's not a case of spam every AoE heal under the sun to try and cheese meters. We want to be a better player than that. We want to make our play as good as possible, and our play says to us, yo, if I could top someone off with a Riptide, that doesn't mean I need a Healing Rain. I'm going to do longer, better fights by following this ethos, this entire line of thinking. But if that raid is going to take heavy damage, let's get a Healing Rain down on them. Now, if you're in looking for raid, you're going to see Healing Rain spammed on all the people it can possibly fit, which in general thinking is actually correct. It's common sense. I'm going to drop this Healing Rain. I want as many people as possible in it. The problem with that is, if the raid is not in one group, again, Madness of Deathwing, we're DPSing Tentacles, the big mutated corruptions, we're going to have a melee group, we're going to have a caster group. I have barely ever seen a Healing Rain dropped on the melee. It's always on the casters. Why? Because we've got the casters there, which generally there's more of them, and we've got the healers all stood together, all taking big whomps from those tentacles because we don't realise we should spread out. Always, I've seen 3 or 4 Healing Rains on those guys, and nothing on the melee. Be common sense, guys. We're not there to cheese meters. That's not our role. We want to make sure that raid is nice and tidy and fine and happy. So if we're going to drop some Healing Rains, be very, very careful about it. Think about it beforehand. Make some decisions that's going to be best for the raid and not for your healing meters, guys. Really, cheesing healing meters is nobody's good news. It's bad, it's bad, it's bad. It really is just to focus on healing meters. I guarantee that if you think, oh, my healing's slightly lower than the other Resto Shaman who healed all the casters all the time, go ahead and check his overhealing done. I guarantee it's atrocious. Overhealing generally tells more about a healer than anything else. It really does. So turn off your healing meter, switch that bad boy over to overhealing, and then you'll start to realise exactly how wasteful these guys are. And trust me, I'm trying to get you guys up to that end game level. I'm trying to get you there. I want you to be raiding alongside me one day. I want that. But what I don't want to see is you just cheesing meters and think I've done a great job. Absolutely not. When it comes to a brand new fight where we don't know how long the fight's going to go, how hard is this fight, is there any particular things I'm ready for, doing massive amounts of overhealing and making yourself out of mana is just going to screw you up, and guilds will kick you for that. When it comes to a real raid, they're not looking for raid, you're going to be in serious trouble by just dropping Healing Rain on 1 or 2 people. In fact, if anybody sees you drop a Healing Rain on just 1 or 2 people, they're going to start asking questions, baby. They're going to be like, why is this guy dropping Healing Rain? Why has he just spent 70k mana? Or, well, that's an exaggeration, of course, but he's dropped all this mana for something that could have been done in 100 mana just by dropping a couple of heals. The raid was in no danger. He had plenty of time to heal it up. Right tool for the right job, as we always say, guys, especially with our healers. Right tool, right job. Healing Rain, be very careful how you spam it, because if you get too used to dropping it all the damn time, you're going to find yourself in trouble, especially when our stats get squished down and altered in Mists of Pandaria. We're not going to find healing that easy by just spamming our AoE heals constantly. The last thing I want to talk about today is exactly how awesome the Resto Shaman is, because it's one of the only 2 classes, along with the Disc Priest, who can constantly be casting something. I love this. I do not like standing and waiting, letting my mana reheal. I hate that. I want to be casting all the damn time, and Shamans are one of those classes that can do that. We've got this ability, this Telluric Currents. Our Lightning Bolt gives us back mana. So every time the raid is in good shape, you don't have to heal every spot of damage in the raid. If your mana's looking low, the raid's in good shape, start tunneling some Lightning Bolts. You should always be casting. If there's a downtime in a fight where the raid is spreading out like Morchok, when the blood comes, the raid generally spreads out and takes no damage unless they're absolute goons. You should be firing Lightning Bolts at that time. Now let's understand Telluric Currents. I always encourage you to read your talents. It's based on the damage your Lightning Bolt does, is how much mana you get back. Think about Dragon Soul and how many bosses take an increased amount of damage at certain points in the fight. This translates into enormous mana regen, absolutely insane mana regen. I'll reel some off for you. We've got Hagara the Stormbinder, takes an immense amount of damage as soon as she's stunned. Madness of Deathwing, as soon as he starts casting Cataclysm, those things take nearly 250% mana. You'll see in the video in the background that I actually refill my mana bar from empty to full in 4 lightning bolts. A full mana bar regen. Absolutely amazing. And this goes for other fights. Your Sergeant Sleeping, Warlord's Honours, they all take an increased amount of damage at certain points. And via that and our Telluric Currents, we can have infinite mana. We should always be casting. We should always be doing some form of DPS unless we need to heal. If we need to heal, fine. If the raid's in good shape, we don't need to cast any heals, tanks sorted, we should always be casting, firing off them lightning bolts. Get into the habit that every time you stop healing, you're doing something else. Standing still is a clear sign of a bad Resto Shaman. I can't express it enough. Standing still, not casting anything, any Resto Shaman or healing officer worth his salt sees that, is going to say, we haven't got a good Resto Shaman. A Resto Shaman should be using every global cooldown in every single fight. It's so important, guys. I really can't encourage you enough to constantly be casting. This is our Resto Shaman guide for this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you again shortly.